what is Jieh Dao? Well, Jieh Dao, translated from Chinese Mandarin, means tri-fold way. San means three, and Jieh is the section or fold, and Dao is the method or way. So three-section way or tri-fold way. And the core principle of Jieh Dao is very simple. It's the idea and the principle and the fact that we human beings are the results of what we believe. So if I break it down, it comes down to this. Our spirit, our conscious affects the way we think. And obviously the way we think represents itself to the way we act. So from our belief system, our conscious that have accepted the philosophies and doctrines and all the concepts of life, to the way that we think, we analyze with our mind, and then basically represent itself to our action, or physical action. So spiritually, mentally, physically. Spiritually will affect the mental side, mental will affect our physical side. So all the way from our spirit down to our action, and reverse is true. So this is true both in life, and obviously if it's true in life, it's true in combat. So I based the art based on this principle that, as who we are as human being, because we're trifold being, we need to train all the aspects of our makeup, our structure in combat, in martial art. Our body constantly moving and causes action, and our mind constantly analyzing questions and judges. And our spirit obviously has accepted and absorbed various doctrine, philosophies, and principles. Again, to reiterate, we are what we believe. And I never cease to say that you want to know why a person acts the way he or she acts, not just in that moment, but as a pattern in their life. You look at a pattern in someone's life. You need to understand what they believe. You need to understand where their conscious rest, meaning what have they accepted, what kind of philosophies have they absorbed in their mind, in their heart, and so they're living their doctrine. Now you say doctrine only applies to those that believe in God or those that are Christian. No, doctrine, the general definition of doctrine, it applies to everyone. Even an atheist that does not believe in God has a doctrine, and that is their doctrine, not believe in God. They have their own principle, they have their own philosophies that they follow, and as a result, their life is based on their principles that they've accepted. So our external behavior is ultimately the result of what we have accepted in life. And so during our combative training, we understand how to relate to those aspects of the human being. So as a result, we need to train all the three sections or three aspects of our structure, of our makeup. Our behavior in combat and life, again, is based on our philosophies. Philosophies that have been embedded and soaked in our conscious. We're not just a physical being. We don't just use our body. We're not just a mental being. We don't just use our mind. We don't just use our conscious, meaning we're not obviously just purely a spiritual being. We are trifold being. And all the aspects of our makeup, our structure, do need to be trained. Now, we don't focus and say, well, this is spiritual training or that's a mental training. No. when we train, it's a physical training. We train hard. There's a lot of cardio involved, and in another audio segment, I will talk about the curriculum and the structure of the art itself during our training sessions. But to delineate in a very general macro level, our training embodies everything. Okay, give you an example. There is a concept behind a jab, straight jab. Why do we jab? And how do we jab? So, and what is the purpose of our jabbing? At that moment, in front of that opponent, in that situation, and what does a jab look like? There, I just described the trifold aspect of a jab. The intention behind it, the concept of the jab and how it applies in a practical situation, and what does the jab look like? What part of the body, what part of the hand, what part of the fist do we make contact? So that's a trifold definition of a simple element, which we call jab, straight jab. And the same thing is true for all the other biological element or physical element, whether single, combination, high or low, left or right, vertical, horizontal, I like to call it XYZ, directional, as we train. So that is trifold training. Now, us being the Jieh Dao, which is based on a biblical principle, its root is based on the scripture, based on a biblical principle. Again, I don't bring a Bible to the classroom and say, here, this is what we do, this is why we do it. No. Again, as I described earlier, the ingredient of the art, it's already together. When you go to a restaurant, you order food. You order one of your favorite dishes or two or three of your favorite dishes. When the waitress brings the food in front of you, food looks delicious. You eat it, you enjoy it, but you don't know how much work has gone into preparing and cooking that food. You may see some of the elements in there. You may see a carrot, you may see a chicken, you may see shrimp or fish, different meats, different vegetables, but you don't know all the spices. You don't know to what degree those spices were applied, to what degree was the temperature, and what did the chef do in detail to prepare that food for you. Now that food is a combination of different things, and when you eat it, you're digesting the rest, basically what the recipe that the chef used and his way of cooking and preparing. You're eating his style of food. And if you order the same food in 2-3 different restaurants, you may get a little bit of a different flavor, different version of that food, because the chef may have prepared it a little bit different. The objective of that ingredient is the same. I could give you a bunch of examples. Chinese as an example. There are lots and lots of different dishes. And if you go to the same dish, if you go to 3 different restaurants, for example, cao mi fan. It's a sticky rice, very thin rice type of a dish. It's a Taiwanese dish. You go to 3 different restaurants that offer that food, you will get 3 different taste and flavor of that food. So now you're looking at is food, which is the ingredients that you have in mind. I want to get this dish that you're familiar with. That's the objective. And the way the chefs prepare the food with the same exact ingredients as what it's supposed to, quote unquote, supposed to be there, that's the subjective. And that's how the student learn. Now I'm speaking from a student perspective, and the same thing applies to instructor, by the way, of Jieh Dao. So I expanded the definition of Jieh Dao into its process of learning, understand the philosophy of learning, as well as its philosophy and the principle of instruction. So now going back to the original definition of Jieh Dao, trifold being or training a trifold art for the purpose of a trifold objective. And the elements that are combined in this art, those are the objective. But students learn those elements individually based on their own God-given gifts and skills and talents. As to how they see it, how they observe it based on their body limitation and body function, their background, their understanding, but the principle and objective of the art will never change. But each student learn it in their own unique way. And the instructors of Jieh Dao will teach it based on their own unique way, but they will never ever compromise the objective elements, principles, philosophy of the art. So the art is objective as well as subjective. And again, I will go back into the original definition as to we trifold humans, even though we're trifold, but we're all different. So the freedom of learning and expression exists very heavily in the art without violating the objective principle and the element and the curriculum of the art, both from the instructor as well as the student's perspective. So we train as a package, and we train all the aspects. I'll go back to the original definition of the art. When the art, I talk about we are basically what we believe. Now, if you see a pattern of a certain philosophy in someone's life, or certain philosophy that various people share, and compare that with another set of philosophy that other people share, you will see a different behavioral pattern in life. Maybe some that are more rough and violent, the other set are more softer and quieter. So what we have accepted in our conscious will manifest itself in our physical behavior. Now, this is true in life, and if it's true in life, and since it is true in life, it will 100% be true in combat. Peaceful people versus violent people. Again, this is not all inclusive, but this principle can lead us toward a better understanding and relationship of their belief, people's beliefs versus their behavior. I emphasize that even in the arts that are very physical, there's always an intention behind that art. Even though they may not put their mind into it, they may not pay any attention to the reasons and the purpose of why they're doing it. They may not necessarily define it, but the fact is that there is no such thing as a purely only a physical martial art apart from its conscious that was behind the art that had made up the art. Now, again, there's no such thing as a purely physical martial art apart from its mental aspect and apart from its conscious or philosophies that had fueled the art to be what it is. If it's just kickboxing, all they're doing is just going to a gym and hitting, there's a reason behind that. If they're being taught only that, there's a reason behind it. Now, in SJD, we're always in a business of giving whys and hows for all of its whats. Let me define that again. In SJD, we're always in a business of giving the whys and hows for all of its whats. The whats are the elements that the students are learning. Hows is the process and the curriculum, the objective, as it fits based on each student's subjective way of learning. And the whys are the intentions that would include both the mental as well as the spiritual or the conscious or the philosophies that are behind the elements.